Hello, guys, and welcome to the fifth episode of Film Frauds. And now this is going to be like a weird intro I'm going to do because I'm actually not really going to talk about this episode, even though this one's great and you should continue to listen to it. I'm actually going to talk about the next two or three episodes of Film Frauds. So at the end of this episode, spoilers, we preface. I give my recommendation, which I won't give away, but we also say, hey, our friend Mark wants to join the podcast for a guest episode, and we want to talk about a movie he's going to do. And I'm not going to tell you which movie that is because you have to watch until the end. But so the plan is, we figured everything out. The plan is for episode 6, we're going to talk about our friend Mark's episode. Episode 7, we'll be talking about most likely The Five Bloods, the new Spike Lee movie. And then episode 8 will be my recommendation, and then we'll kind of get back on track, or if something new comes up, then I'll let you guys know. But that's just the plan for 6, 7, 8, just so there's no kind of no confusion or anything with that. But I just wanted to give you guys a heads up. Yeah, but this episode's also a good one. We talk about The Wrestler, and I think we just kind of ramble about stuff we've been watching. I think we talked about the Jonas Brothers too for a little bit. That was a fun discussion. So yeah, enjoy, guys.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the most must-listen-to podcast on YouTube. Welcome to
The Film Frauds Podcast. Yeah.
That is correct. Speaking right now is Matt, and before me is the one and only Turkey Tyler Clardy.
Gobble, gobble, gobble. So dumb.
So, since there's no movie news still, and really no big releases coming out as we're in our year of our Lord coronavirus, we're just going to talk about old movies still that we recommend We recommend a movie each week. Last week, I recommended The Wrestler, 2008 movie, to watch for this week. So today, we're going to be discussing it. That was a very complicated way of
That was just saying we're going to talk about The Wrestler.
Yeah. Well, I want to give people background. We're not just randomly talking about The Wrestler for no reason.
Yeah,
and that's because I recommended it because it is a great movie.
Yep, and this is my first time seeing it. I'm not too familiar with Darren Aronofsky. Everything you've told me about him sounds like he makes very depressing movies.
Yeah,
and
I've seen quite a few.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like, ooh, I have a couple hours tonight. Do I want to put on Black Swan? Probably, it's going to be a great movie, but I really feel like leaving that movie going, man, I kind of hate everything now.
Yeah, I saw the movie and I was too young to watch it, and it really messed me up.
So this is clearly, The Wrestler, this is clearly your type of movie after watching it. Yeah. So why don't you tell about your kind of like background with wrestling and your history of it? Because I feel like you are a much bigger wrestling fan, much, much bigger than I am. I feel like the movie resonate a lot more with you.
So I've been watching wrestling since I was like 5 or 6 years old. So I kind of started in 2005, and I watched it from 2005 to about 2009. And I dropped out of it a bit when I was in high school. And then I got back into it freshman year of college because I was so bored with my life then, and I just wanted something to do. It's like, I'll start watching wrestling again. And I eventually got a social life in college, but I still was like, man, wrestling is really good. I really like it now. I kind of got more back when I was younger. The WWE wants you to think that the only wrestling product in the world is WWE. But when I went to college, I was like, oh wait, there's more companies around the world. I started getting more well versed in the many forms and companies of wrestling. Very complex system. So yeah, I've been a wrestling fan for a very long time, and seeing this movie and giving it, so there's really crappy WWE movies, which are really over the top and stupid that kind of go into wrestling, but not really. This movie, I think, is about as accurate as a depiction of wrestling as you can be without it being a documentary.
Mm-hmm.
This movie really. You can tell Darren Aronofsky and the people involved in the movie, they may not like wrestling or may not be passionate about wrestling, but they really got into the nitty gritties of like the independent wrestling scene and the like rise and fall of legendary wrestlers, which is what who Mickey Rourke plays in this movie. His name is Randy the Ram, and he was a big wrestler in the 80s. You get in the intro of the movie, you see all these like news clips of him having big matches at like Madison Square Garden and stuff, and you get the feeling that he's he's this world's version of Hulk Hogan probably.
Mm-hmm.
And then the first match he's in this movie, within the first like 5 minutes, he's in like a small indie show, and you see him when he's old, and you get the feeling that like he's over the hill now. His glory days are behind him. But he still needs to wrestle, and you don't really know why yet. But as the movie goes on, you figure out that it's both he needs it for financial purposes, and also he's just obsessed with wrestling and with
Yep.
being like the hero.
Yep.
So what are your general first impressions of the movie?
So just first off, this is our non-spoiler. We'll talk about spoilers in a little bit because there's a definite lot to talk about here. But again, I'm not too versed on Darren Aronofsky. I've seen his movie Mother, which is adequate. It's a fine movie.
It's fine, yeah.
It's well made.
It was so weird when that movie first came out. Like I remember, like YouTubers were all like, "My interpretation of the Mother."
Yeah.
And it's like I remember Chris Stuckman did one. He's like, "Well, this is what I think the movie's about." It's like it's really obvious.
Yeah, it's a very clear.
There's literally one way to interpret it. It's the Bible.
It's the Bible. That's all the movie is. No, but like the story of Mother and is kind of like not as good as it could have been, mainly because it's based off the Bible. But I mean, presentation-wise, the movie's phenomenal. It's a well-directed, well-made movie. And this movie has an incredible story, but also visually, directing-wise, is incredible. There's almost my first takeaway from this movie is there's almost no exposition in this movie.
Yeah.
Everything, like you mentioned, the intro is just posters of his matches, and you see, oh wow, clearly look at this character at the height of his fame, and then you see him in an elementary school. And he's
doing, like a gymnasium.
Yeah, and he's like
guys.
yeah, and it's just like, oh great, and then the match ends, and then this isn't spoilers, this is the first 3 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
And then he drives home, and the song going on, the lyrics before he turns off his car is, you don't know what you got till it's gone.
Yeah.
Right there.
I noticed that.
Yeah, everything that you need to know about his character and where he is at life. He was at Stardom.
And his home is in a trailer park.
Yep, it's a trailer park, and he's locked out of it. He sleeps in his car.
Yeah, he's locked out of it.
But you get a clear sense of who this character is right at the start of the movie. The movie's not long; it's about an hour and 50 minutes long. But right in the first 3 minutes, you basically get his rise and fall to where he is at his fall, which I think is really great. And again, the rest of the movie has almost no exposition about what he's gone through, or what he's had to deal with, or how he's basically how he's gone to his fall. You just kind of see the results of it.
Yeah.
And
you just know. Like it's not like you don't know the specifics of what happened, but you can just tell based on his life decisions that he makes during the movie that he had a fall from grace. And just like just the natural process of aging. He can't he just literally cannot be performing at a high level his whole life.
Popularity goes down. I mean, there's a definite respect with this movie. Sorry, my phone vibrate. There's a definite respect given to these characters, which you would think, which is it's interesting because you expect these movies, these characters who are at the bottom, to have some fall of grace where the world has kind of abandoned them, but it really isn't, and that's what I really like about this movie. This movie is incredibly realistic, and I know that's kind of like a half-assed term to explain how great the movie is, but there's no every character in this movie loves Randy the Ram.
Randy the Ram.
I'm sorry. I was thinking of the University of Rhode Island mascot.
Yeah. But it's so funny how whenever he's at an indie show, whenever he comes into the locker room, everyone claps for him.
Everyone's like, "Hey!" and everyone loves him. And there's one line where he's like, "Hey, want to go get a drink?" And he's like, Randy's like, "Only if you're buying." The guy's like, "Yeah, sure."
And he's very supportive of the wrestlers he goes against. He's like that first wrestler. He goes, "You're gonna make a name for yourself someday."
Yeah.
You get the feeling that he's doing the wrestling for the money, but also because it's literally an addiction for him. Like he loves to wrestle. He loves that going through the curtain and having the crowd cheer for him.
Yeah.
And a guy who loses, he wins so much in wrestling, but he's a loser in real life.
Yeah.
That's the only time he really gets. You can tell he's obsessed with adulation. He needs to be able to feel validated, and the only way he can get validation is through wrestling.
Yeah.
That's the only time he's actually really viewed as a good guy.
Yeah, and there's times where this kind of seeps into his real life. You see it, another establishment of character. He's really great with the kids. After he wakes up, after he's locked out of his trailer park, kids also wake him up, and you would expect in these movies for the old, bitter, broken down character to be waking up the kids, be like, "Oh, kids, get out of here!" But instead, he's like, "Yo!"
Yeah.
And he jokingly chokes.
They wake him up. He probably got 3 hours of sleep that night, and he still puts on the performer mask, and he's playing with the kids, and you can tell he's enjoying it too.
Yeah, and there's also the part where he starts to work at the deli. And before he goes through the curtains, like you just said, his music, the crowd's chanting, and he walks out, and it's silence. Yeah. But as you see, as time goes on, he starts to put on more of a show
Yeah.
and people are loving, even to the point where he tells one of the customers, like, "Hey, go long, go long." The customer's like, "What the fuck?"
The acting in that scene is so good too,
Yeah.
because they found actors that just perfectly portray normal people. Like
Yep.
this is how like when the guy when he's saying go long and the guy's just like, really? Like,
Yeah.
do I have to? Like, he's so uncomfortable,
Do you
and
want
you
to know
feel like
why?
the realism of that scene.
This is we have a slight like trivia. I basically looked at IMDb trivia. A lot of the interactions he had, they were improvised.
Oh, really?
So it's a
Okay,
lot of
interesting.
just like probably the actors and extras
Yeah.
there just waiting for him to do something. So he's like, "Hey, go long," and the guy's like, "Fine, okay, sure." Yeah, there is a it's just it's a really interesting character study of a guy who's addicted to basically the limelight and the fame, and who excels at it. Clearly, it shows like he's respected, he's
He's a very personable
charismatic.
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but it's just a realistic movie about what age and what time does to people. Fame isn't forever. Clear,
Yeah.
and at least in because again, you can speak more to this being a bigger fan of wrestling of these stars, and you even see it now, older stars coming back in, like
Yes.
like again, I'm not too familiar with wrestling, but the Undertaker is almost what 60.
He's in his mid-50s at least,
Yeah,
I would say. Yeah.
and he's had his prime. He was one of the best and most popular wrestlers in the world, and
Yeah.
then he's just coming back in. And
Yeah, I
he's
want to speak on that really quickly because there's currently a documentary series produced by WWE right now called Undertaker: The Last Ride,
yeah,
and it's going over his most recent matches. And so the Undertaker isn't in the Ram situation because he is incredibly wealthy.
yes,
He's still with the company. He has a wife and a family that loves him, and he still works at the company. And you can tell he's in a good place
yep,
with his life right now. But even still, he needs that he's addicted to going back to wrestling. So
yep,
it's going over. There's a recurring theme in this documentary where Undertaker wrestles a match and he either thinks it's really good and he says, "Oh, I can do another one because I'm in really good shape right now," or
yep,
it's awful and he says, "I can't go out like this. Like, why? I'm the Undertaker. I wouldn't go
yeah,
out in that Goldberg match, for example, against Saudi Arabia. It's been pretty notorious now for being terrible. Like, he sees that match, he says, I can't go out like this. Like, that can be my last match." Then later he does a tag team match with Roman Reigns against Drew McIntyre and Dolph Ziggler. It says, and it was a good match. He goes, "Well, that was a good match. I'm feeling pretty good right now.
yeah,
I got another match in me." So even so, with the Rams case, you can say, "Oh, well, he's broke and he has no one,
yep,
and so that's kind of why he needs that life." Undertaker, on the other hand, has a family that loves him, is incredibly wealthy,
yeah,
and still he needs to risk his body
yeah.
for for that thrill of being out there in the wrestling ring.
Yeah, I do have a question about this because it was Randy the Ram. It seemed like they were setting up that he was more of a one of the more popular indie stars.
Yeah,
And not he because what we're talking, he was famous in the 1980s.
yeah.
So he didn't. I didn't get the idea that he was one of the biggest wrestling stars on like the biggest stage, but he kind of seemed like he dominated the smaller circuits,
Yeah, I
which
can
is
go into that a little bit. So, in the 80s, WWE wasn't the conglomerate it was over
yeah,
the US at the time. So there are territories all throughout the US. And then in the early 90s, Vince McMahon's father, no, Vince McMahon, the current Vince McMahon,
hmm
he used to start buying out all the territories like crazy, getting all the top stars from different territories around the US and
yeah,
making WWE the conglomerate it was today. So back then, wrestlers would hop from company to company,
yeah,
just like for example, Ric Flair would wrestle would go around wrestling the best guys from every company around the world defending his NWA title.
yeah,
And there's some like cross promoting stuff going on. So there wasn't just one company at the
yeah.
time. So I think that's what they're going for there.
Yeah, because this movie, I looked up the blurb and it's kind of a it talks about like one of the praises of the movie is how the real life of the indie scene. That's what I got is this movie doesn't focus necessarily on the aging star of a popular thing, but it focuses on that kind of middle of the road star, someone who
Yeah,
had the success but was never kind of that superstar, and how
yeah,
that success ultimately dwindles. It's it's a very we were talking last night and you mentioned the word tragic. Um and I'm hesitant to use that word because I feel like there's a definite self-acceptance, but it also does come along. He in his own version of self-acceptance, um, spoilers, sort of. Not
yeah,
really. But he kind of, in his own form of self acceptance, this is who I am. I am this character. I am this wrestler. I live for the audience. He in turn loses everyone around him. And it's kind of, that's where the tragic element comes. But I also see it as kind of a movie centered around kind of figuring out kind of like not necessarily a coming of age movie, but a self acceptance movie, which might in turn be seen as depressing or tragic to some people. But I never really took it that way. You might disagree with that, I
I
imagine.
just think it's tragic because there's glimpses, like with his daughter that,
Yeah.
and with the stripper girl, that there's glimpses of hope that he can escape, that he can find connection, but he keeps coming back to that crazy wrestling party lifestyle. He just
Yeah.
can't escape it. I think it's tragic in the sense that there's a good man in there somewhere, and you see glimpses of the good man, but he's a victim to his own ego.
Yep.
And that's where I find the tragedy.
Well, I figure because I feel like in this conversation needs specific, but we can talk about. I want to talk about just Darren Aronofsky's directing style.
Yeah.
Before we can get back into more of the narrative elements. Again, you've seen many more Darren Aronofsky movies. There's a certain like lack of style to this movie, which is a weird thing to say, which elevates the gritty, realistic kind of element of it. A lot of the shots are handheld. It's very documentary-esque, like you mentioned, but there's almost a lack of Hollywood like glamour that you would expect in a movie like this. There's no real sheen. I don't feel like there's a lot of natural lighting and scenes that are outside. It's kind of just like it's one of those movies that just feels like a documentary. They're just following this guy around and has his life kind of, trickles down, and it's a really effective way of kind of directing because it draws you in to the lifestyle of this guy. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of like shots following him, like he's walking, and you get like you don't even really see his face until like the first 5 minutes of the movie.
Yeah,
a lot of it is shots of his back.
Yep.
So like you get that thrill of going through the curtain.
Yep.
In the wrestling ring, and like having everyone just look at you and cheering for you.
Yep.
So you get to sympathize with the character more. Yeah, and I just think like the fact that the camera kind of just follows Mickey Rourke around is part of why you relate to him, and why he's such an interesting character.
Yeah. There's
also like this grainy kind of quality to the picture itself.
Yep.
Not like distractingly grainy, but like it feels like older. So it kind of contributes more to the documentary style, I would say.
Yeah, there's a definite speaking on the whole not showing his face. That was something I noticed is we see his face first in the posters when he's had the height of his fame. We don't see his face at all at the beginning, and the first time we really get to see his face, and it's kind of not like a big dramatic reveal. It's just kind of slow revelation is when he starts signing autographs for people, and then we see him. And that was a nice touch. Like, hey, this is kind of like this is his identity is entirely centered around that. There's a lot of really great establishing stuff in this movie, and yeah, I don't know. I really want to check out some other Darren Aronofsky stuff to see if this style kind of carries over. But he really seems to, based on what I've seen from Muller and what I've seen for this, he really seems to adapt his directing style to the project at hand, and that was really impressive. I also was a big fan of the backdrop of 70s and 80s rock music and how prevalent that was in the movie. There's a great line, which I'm quoting it. I'm not saying it. But him and Marissa Tomei are having a drink at a bar, and they're reminiscing about 80s music, and then they kind of shit on the 90s when that Cobain pussy came around.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my God.
That kind of ruined Nirvana for me.
Yeah.
Every time Nirvana comes on, I just think of that line. I'm like, oh, these guys are so lame.
It's like Nirvana sucks. Mickey Rourke told me the wrestler he does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I was kind of a fan of the tying of 70s and 80s music and how prevalent it was to kind of his identity, because there's a lot of Guns N' Roses music in it. It's really interesting. Kind of his entire character feels like someone in the wrong era. That's what it feels like.
Well, he's just stuck in a different era.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was a big fan of that, but I don't know. What are your favorite parts of the movie without going into spoilers so far?
Do you want to just go into spoilers?
Yeah, it's great. Matt, do you recommend this movie?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, of course I recommend this movie.
Yeah, this is a phenomenal movie. From everything from the performances to the directing, the music, and the narrative kind of nuances. I mean, you can't beat this movie.
No, this is a fascinating character study.
Yeah.
And if you want to like get a good glimpse into the wrestling world, like the real wrestling world, I think this is a great movie.
I completely agree. This movie feels like a wrestler's dream.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not.
Well, yeah, not
dream.
But like, hey, they really captured.
Yeah, it's very respectful.
Yeah, I think it's the best word is respectful. But yeah, I recommend this movie too. So spoilers. Matt, what's your favorite
Yes.
part of the movie, or any favorite parts?
One of my favorite parts has to be like during the first match, the first wrestling match,
Yep.
where they're in the locker room, and it's just shots of like the different wrestlers talking about the matches that are going on,
Yep.
and like one guy is like, it's like, okay, we'll work the leg, and he goes, wait, are you guys working the leg in your match? Like, we can't have two matches where the main storyline is some guy's getting his leg. It was one wrestler attacking the other wrestler's leg,
Yep.
and like things like that are just funny. He's like, okay, so we'll work the leg, and then you'll work the neck or something,
Yep.
and things like that. So again, with storytelling that's not exposition, you get the idea that yes, it's predetermined, and then cuts to the wrestling match, and Ricky Rourke is like, there are some obviously fake moves, but he's obviously also getting hurt at the same
Yeah.
time. You see in his face like, oh, like when he gets like slammed on the mat, he's like, oh, that really hurt.
Yeah, like, oh, my back. Like,
And then like the great scene where you first see him when he's wrapping up his doing the wrapping tape, and he puts
Yeah.
that little like metal piece in it, and you're like, oh, what is that? And then
Yeah.
you find out later on, well, I knew what it was, but
Yeah.
you find out later on he's using it to cut his forehead to draw blood.
Yeah.
And then so you think, oh, so then if you're not a wrestling fan, like, oh, that's how they bleed. That must be how they bleed, which it is in one sense. Then in the next match,
Oh,
you see the fork where he's doing a hardcore match.
yeah.
And the Necro Butcher, who's a real life wrestler, does a very good job in this movie acting. He's a real life like hardcore wrestler, and he's just putting the fork in his head
Yeah.
and carving it, and then you see like, oh, so you get like the hardcore matches, and he's like, oh, like these guys are legitimately hurting each other horribly.
Yeah.
And even if you watch hardcore matches with the company CZW,
Yeah.
like they use those light tubes to smash people over the head. They have those
Yeah.
like everything you see in that movie, in that hardcore match, are things that the real wrestlers do in real life, which adds like an element of legitimacy to the movie, which I
Yeah.
really appreciated.
That second fight, the hardcore fight, as you put it, is my favorite part of the movie, and I think it's because of how Darren Aronofsky frames the fight. Is because we don't see the match at first, because anyone who knows anything about wrestling is ultimately fake in air quotes. Yes, there are a lot of real hits, but ultimately it's fake. So Darren Aronofsky does a really great thing where he shows the aftermath of everything, and shows Mickey Rourke. I said Ricky Mork. Mickey Rourke covered in blood, beat up, and as someone who isn't a big fan of wrestling, you see that and you go, yeah, that looks like all fake. And then you and then you see the remnants of the ring, and then it slowly starts to play back. And as you see him basically get hit with barbed wire, get hit with a staple gun, so then you see all the blood is real, and then you see the fork drag, and it slowly reveals like, oh my god, like everything we just saw at the end, we're like, oh, it's all fake. It's not. And
no, it's not. Yeah.
And that adds to the kind of the grittiness and the grittiness and the realness of the movie. And then it adds to like the kind of like the sorrow you feel for the guy. You're like, this is what he still has to go through.
Yeah, you know the guy's like at least in his mid 40s or 50s at the time.
Oh, he's absolutely 50s. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like just killing himself to make money and to get like the crowd's appreciation.
Yeah.
There's also like, just briefly mention that first match when they're wrestling. There's like old dried blood on the mat still.
Yeah.
And it's so gross.
You're just like, oh, it all looks like blood in it.
You get like the really dirty side of the independent scene. Like, it's just great.
There's also like little touches. There's not a lot of like score in the movie.
No.
There's a lot of just. You're right, Mickey Rourke walking to places.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite parts is even like a lot of the talking scenes. He is breathing. He is breathing so haggardly, which just adds to like, man, this guy's beaten down. Because even he's like walking downstairs and you just hear his breathing, and it just adds to the whole, oh my god, this dude is just beat down. And it's all these little touches, just like, even if you don't even realize it, because I didn't realize it for the first half of the movie until when he's walking to go to the deli, and he's, and I'm like, oh my god. So I would go and replay some scenes, and like, oh my god, he's breathing super heavily, and then later you pick up on it, and this is a beaten down man. And it's really these little kind of nuanced touches add to the character and add to the world. Yeah.
What did you think of Marissa Tomei in the movie?
Was she nominated for an Oscar for this?
I can check right now.
I think she was. I think she was nominated for.
Mickey Rourke was definitely nominated.
Oh yeah, she was nominated. She's really good in the movie. But I had heard nothing but like overwhelming praise from her.
Yeah.
about her in this role, and I thought she was good, but I didn't. It was definitely one of those. Oh man, she's like one of the best parts of the movie, and I didn't think she was. But
She
that's
was
not.
nominated. Yeah.
She was not. And that's not downplaying her. That's just my fault for buying into like the oh my gosh, she's so amazing in this movie.
Yeah.
But no, she's another character who's clearly who her backstory isn't spelled out. You only learn one thing about her, and that's it. And but
Yeah.
she just
She
feels
kind
like
of parallels Mickey Rourke, in which they're both aging performers,
yep.
and I like that element of it.
Yeah, I was a big fan of we talked about realistic romances in The Handmaiden. This
Yeah.
one's just as good. You can see her take pity on Mickey Rourke. Spoilers. Like halfway through the movie, she agrees to help him go find a present for his daughter.
Yeah.
Um, but you can tell that there's a barrier there where she clearly pities him
Yeah.
and is like, oh, this guy's so I'm gonna help him. But you see her walls being broken down the more he kind of distances herself because she's a stripper in the movie like you said where he starts to kind of paint her as a person instead, and you can see these walls broken down. You can kind of see the chemistry is kind of building because you don't really know at the beginning of the movie. You're like, oh, does she like him, or does she kind of put on that facade because he's a paying customer?
Yeah.
You don't really know. So
And there's
I
also
thought
like the I wouldn't say it's like a pure romance. There's kind of like you kind of get the idea that she knows she's getting older.
yeah,
She can be doing this much longer, and she's kind of looking for stability.
yep,
She wouldn't go for Mickey Rourke for
no,
stability, but it shows how desperate she is because there's this one guy who legitimately loves her,
yeah,
and like, you see that scene where he's like, "Oh, how about you come with me to go find my daughter some clothes?" And she's
yeah,
like, "No, I can't do that." And she walks, and she like looks around the club, and she's like, "Oh," like you get that realization, like, "Oh yeah, like I can't do this for much longer." And she
yeah,
comes back, it's like, "Oh hey, how about I do go with you?"
yeah.
So like I think that there is some legitimate feelings for her there, but there's also that sort of like I need stability right now.
Yeah.
Um, why not just try this?
Yeah, because again, it's those little moments where Mickey Rourke shows like care for his daughter, where
Yeah,
that it's that glimmer of hope, and again, it's that glimmer of hope that she grasps onto at the end, which ultimately, you know, fails.
yeah,
Where she's like, there's like, you're right, you said there is glimmers of a good person in this
yes,
broken down character, and it's what she those glimmers that she grasps onto, which builds this romance. Because again, we're viewing the movie from Mickey Rourke's perspective, and I found it very believable. I was thoroughly when they're having a beer and they're dancing. I was like, yeah. I was like, you know what? I really buy this. I buy the chemistry, and I
yeah,
buy that right now. She sees the good, and she would kind of latch onto that. So I was a big fan. I don't know. What about you?
yeah. There's just it just feels incredibly realistic.
Yeah,
That's really all I can say about it. You got the idea, like I just said, you got the idea that yeah, there might be some feelings there, but there's also this like kind of desperation on her part to try to
hmm
find some stability. But I think he's a good character. I think he's overall a likable character, and like you feel so bad for Randy because he's so pathetic. Like he's trying
yeah,
to like romance this girl he's paying
yeah,
to be with, and it's just kind of embarrassing and kind of pathetic in a
yeah.
way. But you get the idea that they're both he's desperate for intimacy,
hmm
and she's kind of desperate for stability, and they're
Yeah.
kind of just kind of like settling with that. I would say.
Yeah, I was a big fan of the fact that there you would again we were going to use the word realistic a bunch, and that again that sounds like oh of course you'd say that,
Yeah.
but there are great. I feel like we can talk about him and his daughter.
Yeah.
Um, there are moments in a movie like this. Standard storytelling moments would be him and his daughter are estranged. He's failed her so many times. She doesn't want anything to do with him. But slowly over the movie, he tries to better himself, and you would expect the one monologue, the long monologue, where he's like, "I'm sorry, this is
Yeah.
blah 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 blah." It's really he doesn't have that. He goes, "Hey, I'm getting older, and I'm sorry," and then that's
Because
it.
he has a heart attack after the
Yeah.
hardcore match, and he kind of
Yes.
realizes his mortality at that moment.
Yep, and his daughter is reconnecting with his daughter up until that point. There's no grand gesture. There's nothing. It's just these little moments and these little
Yeah,
things, and you see it's working. And what one of my favorite parts of it was you would expect in this movie the grandma. I still have it.
yeah,
I'm not going. But the only time you get that is when he's at the ring and he's talking at the end of the movie, where he's talking to the audience.
yeah,
You are my family. This is
yeah,
you. I'm only. There's a great part where he's giving that speech and someone in the background shouts 20 more years. And he's like, I'm gonna go as long as you guys want me here. And yeah, someone shouts 20 more years, and you see that, and you're like, oh no.
Yeah.
And he goes, "You're my family," and it adds to it. You're like, oh, the Marissa Tomei, hey, there's light. There's a life. You don't have to do this. And his daughter is like, you're the same person, and his family, the one that he gravitates to, is killing him. And I was like,
The
man,
one that sees him as a one-dimensional
yeah,
wrestling character is the
which
one that he gravitates towards.
which
Yeah.
the end song of the movie about a one-trick pony is exactly like that. It's really fascinating. But I was really appreciative of the fact that there's no grand gesture. It's just these little moments, the build up of trust, and then he squanders it, and the daughter's never seen again.
Yeah. No, my favorite, one of my favorite moments also is a scene where like they break into that construction zone.
Yeah.
And they just dance, and like it's a really well shot scene because it's all one take, I think.
Yep.
And like you understand that there is definitely a connection there.
Yep.
And there's like a legitimately good father-daughter relationship there.
Yeah.
And you start to think like, oh, maybe this could actually be good. But then you're like, wait, it's Darren Aronofsky movie. Wait, everything has to end miserably.
Yeah. We can't be happy.
Yeah, and then just makes that his decision to like go out partying and miss what I missed the dialogue. What there was some sort of thing he had to attend for her that he missed because he got drunk.
I think it was just birthdays. I think it was
or something like that. And he's like, I waited 2 hours for you.
Oh, okay. So he basically they set up, they're like, we're gonna go to dinner. Saturday works, and they're like, great. He goes out with drinks with the indie guys, meets a girl, does cocaine, they have sex, and then he goes home, collapses, and misses the dinner. And she's like, I waited 2 hours.
Were they sleeping in the girl's son's bedroom?
I was wondering about that.
I think
so too. Yeah. I was honestly, because it's a Darren Aronofsky movie, I was waiting for a horrible kind of moment where the girl like is a lot younger than I think you realize. Like, because I saw her in the kids' room and I was like, oh no, did he sleep? Like, my thing was like, he's going on a downward spiral. He fucked up. I was like, did he sleep with like a minor or something? I was like, oh no. Yeah, I don't know. That was weird, but that is the catalyst that leads to his daughter. In a very realistic.
Evan Rachel Wood's so good in that scene where she's so like you just feel like the years of mental stress just all come back in that one moment.
Yeah.
Because you just know that this is not the first time this has happened. Just from her performance.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, I just don't want to see you again. Like you bring up all these, you make me feel horrible. And that was just such a great scene. I just really love that acting by Evan Rachel Wood in that scene.
Yeah,
and Mickey Rourke's also great in it too. When he's like stroking her hair and she just can't look at him.
No. Yeah, there's that point where she's sad, she gets angry at him, and then eventually she sits down. She's like, I don't like want to see you, and she curses like, I don't fucking see you.
There's just this acceptance where she just realizes my life is just better without you.
Yeah, and that's it. And then we never see her again. But that's we saw a movie like that, or I watched a movie like that where that happens again, where like, because that's real life. I mean, there is no grand breakup. Sometimes characters just phase in and out of the lives. People just phase in and out of your lives, not characters. Yeah. And that just kind of happens. And again, it's another one of these things where it's realistic. This movie is just very, very grounded in this kind of world. And it's not like a big movie. It feels like there's only like a few. There's the strip club. There are the wrestling sets. There's his trailer, his car, and then her house. And that's basically it. That's the movie, and it's lovely. And I was a big fan of how small it is too. It feels like it's really taking place in one small town too.
I also liked coming towards the end because the ending is great. There's in a lesser movie, I think that like the big main event, he's coming back as Randy the Ram. He's fighting his old rival, the Ayatollah, in a match for Ring of Honor. But like you see in the intro, like all like the newspaper posters, it's like the Ayatollah versus Randy the Ram. It's like a big deal, and so they're bringing back that rivalry for one more match to try to get these guys some money to be a big draw. And I like how it's in a lesser movie, it'd be like a much grander stage. It'd be like, oh, we're going to WrestleMania and we'll fight. Yeah. But no, it's like a Ring of Honor event. Which Ring of Honor, it's a good promotion, but it's basically like an indie promotion in the U.S. Like it's realistic. Like all these guys in their 50s are gonna reignite their rivalry in this Ring of Honor event to try to circulate some money. And I really liked that aspect because Ring of Honor is a real promotion, and that adds to like the legitimacy of like the representation of wrestling in the movie, which I really appreciated.
Yeah.
And you see like in the you can tell like visually the Ayatollah, because they say earlier the Ayatollah, like he found a job in car insurance.
Mhm.
He owns a car selling what are car
A
selling
car
companies?
dealership.
Car dealership, yeah. And you see like in their face, like Mickey Rourke is like all like old and wrinkly and stuff, and the Ayatollah just looks like a normal guy. Like
Yeah.
you can tell like the time has been much easier on the
Mhm.
Ayatollah just from visually. He's less wrinkly. He looks less ragged,
Mhm.
and he was able to let go of that wrestling life and live a normal life when he got older. Whereas Mickey Rourke wasn't able to. You just see like all the lines on his face and like
Yeah.
it's just so beaten up.
So,
And I really like that visual storytelling, man.
No, absolutely, and again, there's a lot of respect paid to these indie wrestlers because
Yeah,
there's no, and even in that final match with the Ayatollah,
Ayatollah, yeah,
Ayatollah, there are times when he's like, his heart's going. Ayatollah's like, "Hey man, pin me, get this thing
yeah,
over with. Like you're
yeah,
hurt," and he's like, "No, I'm fine, keep going." And there's a definite like the underground guys are there's this definite sense of community. There is a real care taken with these indie wrestlers, which I feel like is going to add to the longevity of this movie. Again, this movie came out 12 years ago. Holy crap, 2008.
yeah,
And I feel like this movie is probably just gonna. It's one of those that's gonna kind of stand the test of time because as wrestling gets bigger and better, and you're gonna have the development of these indie scenes more and more because wrestling the grand stage is bigger.
yeah,
I feel like this movie's gonna kind of persist as that documentary esque. That's like, hey, this is what our life is like.
yeah.
I was really surprised by that.
It seems kind of timeless in a way because like
Yeah.
the indie struggle, the struggle to be an indie star or like an aging wrestling star, just like trying to maintain that old glory,
Mm-hmm.
is just something that exists in any time period because wrestling's been around since like the early 1900s,
Yeah.
and I feel like that's something that has just been prominent throughout the existence of wrestling, and it will continue to exist in
Yeah.
wrestling, as seen more prevalent now with all these old wrestlers in WWE coming back for no reason.
Yeah. Those poor guys.
Yeah,
I
it
don't
really
get.
makes you appreciate wrestlers like so they're wrestlers like Ric Flair or Undertaker or like Hulk Hogan who
Yeah.
literally wrestle until their body will not let them wrestle anymore. Like
That's
they'll just keep
absurd.
going until they literally cannot take another bump,
Yeah.
and they wrestle in any sort of environment they can just to get that thrill, just to get that money.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get wrestlers like Stone Cold Steve Austin, who was probably the most famous wrestler ever.
Is he?
I mean, I'd say Hulk Hogan is more famous, but I'd say that Stone Cold is probably like the most famous wrestler in wrestling communities. Like
Okay.
even just from, for example, like no wrestler today gets like that pop. Like when you hear like that like glass break and
Yeah.
the crowd, like even The Rock does not get the same reaction that Stone Cold does. Stone Cold is the most beloved wrestler in wrestling,
Yeah.
I would say, of all time. Even though The Rock is more famous, the Hulk Hogan's probably more famous too. Like no one gets that. Like even when Stone Cold shows up still to do like he doesn't wrestle anymore, but even when he shows up to do like whatever
Mm-hmm.
to get viewers to watch Raw, when that glass breaks, like the crowd just goes nuts. He always has the crowd in the palm of his hands. But the guy was the top guy. He was objectively the top guy during the most prolific period of wrestling, the Attitude Era in the 2000s.
Yep.
Even though the wrestling makes more money now, viewership wise, they are making like 10 times the amount of viewership during that period than they are making now, or they
Okay.
were making 10 years prior to the 2000s. That's why I'm saying he's the most famous wrestler, because he was the top guy during the most famous period of wrestling, the Attitude Era. And he's a guy who, dedicated his life to wrestling, but by 38 he was like, I'm retired, like I can't do this anymore, and he stayed retired, which
Good.
is so admirable by comparison to all these other wrestlers that are selling out to make quick money. He retired. It's not even like he's like The Rock is a movie star, so it's understandable why he retired and why he stayed away from it. The Stone Cold, he just lives on his ranch in California doing podcasts.
Yeah, he just hangs out
every once in a while to give someone a Stone Cold stunner, and that's all he does.
Is it?
And it's very admirable in that sense, because like I'm just trying to say this to say like not every legendary wrestler goes out the way Randy the Ram does.
Yeah.
There are some like Stone Cold who manage to he's like I'm 38. I was top guy. My body can't take this anymore, so I'm done, and I'm not coming back. I'm not going to risk my health. So like there's an admirable decision that Stone Cold make just to stay away from it.
Yeah, and there's a definite in this movie, because again, a lot of the wrestling you see, if you go to a live show or watch on TV, the cameras are all kind of far away. Yeah. But in this movie, every movement, the camera's kind of right there, so you see them land, and you see the impact, and you see kind of the grimace, and you realize, oh, this must actually hurt like a lot. Yeah. And it's a very nice touch to the movie. And I was very impressed. I can kind of see the same thing going with like John Cena, who over time is like slowly going away a little bit,
Yeah.
and kind of he's gravitating more towards movies, which hopefully we'll talk about eventually. But yeah, I was a big fan of this movie, and I have some trivia for you.
Oh boy, I'm
Um,
excited.
so there is a the company. This could be fake. I did maybe 30 seconds of research in that because this is IMDb trivia.
That's 3 more seconds of research than you've done throughout the existence of film frauds.
I know, and yeah, I was surprised. I read it and I was like, man, this could be really cool. All right, there was at the studio. Darren Aronofsky wanted Mickey Rourke the entire time. The studio wanted another actor. Who do you think the actor was?
Daniel Day-Lewis.
No, Nicolas Cage.
Oh, that'd been awful.
Yeah, that's weird. Yeah, it's really weird. And then I already told you about the deli scene where it was basically all improvised.
Yeah.
And then Hulk Hogan came out and was like, "Yeah, they wanted me." And then Darren Aronofsky came out and was like, "We never wanted you."
No.
And then that was that.
Hulk Hogan can act for his life.
He cannot act for his life.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a little bit of trivia. I thought Nicolas
I know that
Cage,
that last match, like his last match, was actually filmed in front of the Ring of Honor crowd.
that makes sense because
Like it was like they portrayed it as a wrestling match, and I think Darren Aronofsky said the match was terrible because neither of the guys were that trained in wrestling.
Yeah.
So they tried to film as much as they could really quickly.
They're like, all right,
just get out before the crowd totally turned on them.
What was the what do they chant when it goes like bullshit, or what is that?
Yeah.
What is it they chant?
That's right.
That's bull. Oh yeah, because
Yeah.
That one felt like a real crowd. And
Yeah,
again,
probably.
one of my favorite parts of the movie is like, I'm here. You just broke down, man. You know he's probably gonna die. Whether it's off his final ram jam,
Yeah.
or if it's just later down the line, it's kind of he's gonna die eventually. His heart's gonna give out. But I just love, again, I'm here for as long as you guys want, 20 more years.
Yeah.
It's like, oh,
Because it's brilliant because there's such because it's supposed to be as really like in a lesser movie, it's be a really inspirational moment where he's
Yeah.
like attaching himself to the crowd and he's like, yeah, I'm not done yet. But like as the audience, like, oh, this is it. Like there's no point, there's no coming back from this part. But
yeah,
he's just loving that attention from the crowd, and it's so tragic.
it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the wrestler. I was any final comments on it, or
No, just that I think the ending song is my favorite ending song to any movie.
about the song about the one trick pony?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's great.
It's just called The Wrestler. It's such a great song.
Is it okay? You mentioned that. I completely forgot that was Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna go listen to it. But
one more piece of movie trivia that I have.
okay,
Do you know why he came out to Sweet Child of Mine at the end?
I do not know.
Because Darren Aronofsky ran out of money to fund the film, and Axl Rose, lead singer of Guns N' Roses, was really a huge supporter of the movie.
Yeah.
It's like, you can just use my song for free. I don't care.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So they're just like, all right, he comes out the Sweet Child of Mine. Oh, it's
Yeah.
great. Oh, you gotta respect it. See, I kind of like it.
Thank you, Axl Rose.
Thanks. You made the wrestler. You're the reason wrestlers. Do you think Darren Aronofsky calls him to reassure him like every year? It's like, you're the reason the wrestler's great.
I think Axl Rose is just too high on cocaine to do anything.
Yeah, I gotta. There's.
Darren Aronofsky's too busy. He's probably stalking Jennifer Lawrence.
Oh my god. Oh yeah, weren't they married or engaged?
They were engaged, but there was like 20-year age difference between them or something crazy like that. Not that Darren Aronofsky looks old, but
we're also not disparaging age differences. It's just weird.
Yeah, we're just uncomfortable with it.
We're just very uncomfortable with it. Just like
he was 25 when she was born, and it's weird.
Just like we were uncomfortable, like when Randy the Ram is having sex in the bathroom, and that one lady comes in and just kind of turns around.
Yeah.
I like to think that was just like a real lady. They're like, just go in the bathroom, quick.
Yeah. Darren Aronofsky's like, go in that bathroom.
Do you think Mickey Rourke really seduced her and was like, let's just do it?
Mickey Rourke seduced me, to be honest.
He's huge in this movie. There are scenes where
he's so charismatic, but his face is so ugly at the same time.
What happened to him? Wasn't he like handsome?
I think he had plastic surgery because he's also a boxer in real life too. I think he's got his face messed up and then also plastic surgery. Just like a real bad amalgamation of events that occurred to his face.
He's so charming, but then he'll like turn around and you're
He's
just like, oh.
He's like, lips are sticking out. That's why he's perfect for the movie. That's why Nicolas Cage wouldn't work, because he needs someone who's ugly in real life to do the movie.
Who gets it? His hair is beautiful, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
There's often times where he just kind of flows it, and you're like, yes. But this movie also makes me realize that he's completely wasted in fucking like Iron Man 2.
Yeah.
Because I've never been like a giant Mickey Rourke fan. This is his best movie.
ever. I think anyone will say that.
Yeah.
But then you watch, like, because again, I saw Iron Man 2 before I saw this. I saw Iron Man 2 in theaters in 2010 or 11, whatever. And he's just like a wasted villain in that movie, and I'm like, man.
The wrestler was what reignited his career for a bit too. Like I feel like he probably was only in Iron Man 2 because he was so great in the wrestler.
What has he done since? He hasn't really done a lot of
I can't think of anything at the top of my head right now.
Kind of really squandered that. Remember there was the Matthew McConaughey. It was like Lincoln Lawyer, and then he did Mud, and everyone's like, he's back, and then
he in 1 year he did like True Detective,
Mud, which is apparently great.
Mud and the AIDS movie.
Dallas Buyers Club.
Dallas Buyers Club, which is great. Like he won an Oscar for.
Yeah.
And like everyone's like, oh, it's the Matthew McConaughey here. And then he did that Civil War movie that no one cared about. And then
that's right. A Free Jones State or whatever. Free State of Jones. And then he did that horrible movie apparently called Serenity, which I'll never watch.
Yeah. He won an Oscar, a Golden Globe, and he almost won an Oscar, a Golden Globe, and he should have won an Emmy for True Detective all in 1 year.
That would have been awesome.
Which is crazy. And then after that, like he just fell off the face of the he didn't fall. Like he was just in bad movies and no one cared about him anymore.
Yeah, everyone's like, all right, that was your 1 year, Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
Then you kind of got like the Michael Keaton with Birdman.
Yeah.
Was that? I don't. Yeah, I think
Kevin Costner was in like 10 movies in like 2015.
And then no one cared.
Yeah, and then that was it. Like he was in Draft Day. He was in the
which I've heard Draft Day is actually
movie.
Pretty good.
He was in some movie with Haley Steinfeld where he was like this dying assassin. What?
Was it Mission Impossible?
I don't think it's a Mission Impossible.
What you just said Mission Impossible?
No, I mean Jack Ryan.
Oh,
Shadow
okay.
Recruit. He was in that. He was in some like 3 Days to Kill movie.
With Haley Steinfeld, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so that's again the wrestler's phenomenal. But yeah. So Matt, let's go to our normal segment. What you've been watching or stuff I haven't thought of a name.
Yeah. You can go first because I saw a movie and I can't remember what it's called, so you go first.
All right, I want to introduce a new subsection into what stuff we've been watching. Called Tyler was an idiot.
Yeah.
And it's basically where I go back on my old movie takes that I've had because I rewatched a movie and go, man, I'm an idiot. It's not gonna be every episode because I don't like watching bad movies that often, but
that's a lie. You love watching bad movies.
Dude, they're so much fun. But
it's 2020 movie. I gotta watch it.
I gotta watch it.
Harley Quinn has a 20% Rotten Tomatoes, but it's
Bloodshot.
So I gotta watch it.
Bloodshot, an hour and 45. Double it. Let's do it.
I like to think that you had Pulp Fiction on one screen and Bloodshot on the other screen. You're like, I think we know which one's the right decision here.
I had my phone with Pulp Fiction, and then I had a computer, and I was like,
you have my phone on your phone in the background, and you didn't pay attention to it.
I just threw my phone across the room. I'm like, I'm watching it. So I basically, when I was like 12, 13, I watched a bunch of Michael Bay movies. Yeah. And I watched Bad Boys. And I remember
on the peak of your of you starting to have your sexual awakening.
I was like, oh.
You started watching a bunch of Michael Bay movies.
I was like, whoa. Will Smith. I rewatched Bad Boys because one night
you didn't even deny it.
I didn't even deny it. I can't. This movie might be one of the worst movies I've ever seen, and it's not a novel concept to shit on Michael Bay. But this movie, honestly, I don't get headaches for movies. People say that, and you're like, oh, I got a headache. You got that watching Man of Steel. I got that watching Bad Boys. There's a point where I was convinced I had a stroke because they just ignored it. There's a point in the movie where Will Smith gets like jumped, and then Martin Freeman pretends to be Will Smith's character, and then they reconvene, and then no one talks about the fact that Will Smith got jumped. They're just like, where'd you go? And he's like, oh, I had some stuff to take care of. And I thought I had a stroke. I went and rewatched it because I was like, what the fuck happened? They just never brought it up. And I was honest, and then they goes, it's weird. Like 15 minutes, there's a legitimately good conversation. One good part of the movie, about 15 minutes in, where Martin Freeman and Will Smith are arguing, and there's phenomenal chemistry, and it's basically like how we have an argument where we're just insulting each other. We're like, yeah, fuck you. And it's just like insult. You're like, great. That's how friends are supposed to be. Hard cut. It's like Will Smith.
You're not supposed to like each other.
Yeah. Shut up. It's like.
To point out all your flaws at every given moment.
Like, you're stupid. You look stupid. No,
That's a Tyler insult.
Yeah, shut up.
That's another Tyler insult.
We're gonna introduce a new podcast where we just insult each other for 45 minutes.
Well, I mean, it'd be pretty one-sided, I think.
Well, just like how Martin Freeman is one side of this movie because all of a sudden I feel like there was like an argument behind the scene where Martin Freeman got mad and was like, I want to be the star of this movie.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden the movie becomes stupid and starts following Martin Freeman more. It's really dumb. But I've seen Bad Boys for Life, the third Bad Boys movie, and after watching Bad Boys, I'm glad the captain got shot and killed in the third movie. There's a point where I don't think he doesn't. I think he screams every line of dialogue. There's a point where he's shooting a basketball and he's just like, "Oh, I missed!" and then throws it, and then there's basketballs littered on the floor. He shoots it, it falls 15 over, and he ignores all the basketballs around him and is like running over the one that ran away. I was like, "What the fuck is happening?" And Will Smith is like holding his head. I'm like, "Are you just not going to address it?" There's a point where Martin.
It's supposed to be funny. Like it's supposed to be funny.
Yeah, I don't know, but there's a point where Martin Freeman is caught pretending to be Will Smith's character by his wife, and instead of going, "Hey," blah, blah, he just babbles for like 8 minutes, and then Will Smith comes and babbles for 8 minutes. They go,
You think it was like improv, and they just didn't know what to do?
I think they're probably the worst improv artists ever. It's honestly like they come in and he's like, "Hey, blah 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 blah," and then he just yells, just like, "Oh, you know, we had to," and you're like, "What the fuck is happening?" And then I turn the movie off with 10 minutes left. When the movie just starts, like, they're indiscriminately just killing people in, like, an airport, and I don't know what was happening, and I turned it off and went to bed. And that's my hot movie take. I thought that movie was amazing. And now I watch it, and I'm contemplating, I was an idiot. What is wrong with me? Why is that, like, that movie is so, there is a lot of, like, gay panic in that movie, too.
Oh.
Where like the hot girl.
Oh wait, I know what you're talking about. Isn't there like a scene where they're talking and on the TV? This would be Bad Boys 2, but there's like I think this is Bad Boy 2. Bad. Never mind. This is even Bad Boys 2.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not gonna rewatch it. So that one. Yeah. But there's literally like when Martin Freeman's pretending to be Will Smith, and then he's like the girl they're protecting. She's a hot lady that you see her butt a lot.
Michael Bay film.
Michael Bay film.
That's why I liked it so much when he was 10.
I was like, "Oh, there's a boobies." There's where they're like, "Wow, you have a lot of pictures of him." And he's like, "Yeah, you know, we're partners. That's kind of what we do." And she's like, "Oh, you know, I'm okay with that." And he's like, I'm he's like, I don't do that because he's Martin Freeman. He's not funny, and he just babbles because that was funny in the '90s. But he's like, "Oh, you know, I'm not kidding. That's not my style." And you're like, "Oh, dude, you're like, a lot of gay panic going on there. Like, I don't really know what's going on." There's a lot of like racist jokes in it. In Michael Bay
film?
Yeah. But the thing is, like, 15 years go by between this and the Revenge of Fallen movie, the Transformers, Revenge of Fallen. Is that what it is? Michael Bay has the same jokes in that movie.
Really?
So he just went 14 years later, he's like, "Fuck it. We're bringing back the racist people." We're like, okay. So yeah, that was Bad Boys.
Yeah.
I had a stroke watching it, I'm pretty sure. So, Matt, what did you watch?
I already forgot the name of the movie again, so I want to look it up. I watched a movie with Stephen Amell and Robbie Amell.
What the fuck? What?
Called Code 8.
What the fuck is this movie?
I don't know why I watched this movie. Just to preface, I saw it was an hour and 38 minutes long, but it felt like 3 hours and 30 minutes. And so the movie I think is supposed to be like a pedal for Robbie Amell because Stephen Amell's trying to make him a famous actor, even though he's terrible. And
who are these people? Who's Stephen Amell?
Stephen Amell is Green Arrow.
Oh, that's him?
Yeah. And
okay.
Robbie Amell's his cousin that he tries to make famous, but no one likes.
Who's Robbie? What does he look like?
Wait, I'll put it to the camera. Wait.
That's the dude from True Detective VP. The guy.
True Detective VP. True Jackson VP.
True Jackson VP.
Is it?
Yeah, he's
in the Duff.
I don't know what the Duff
Dumb
is.
Ugly. Never mind.
He's the Dumb Ugly what?
Flash. He plays Ronnie Raymond in The Flash.
What a terrible name.
Don't you watch The Flash?
I don't remember him though. I watched the first 2 seasons of The Flash and realized this is it.
Is he in True Jackson VP?
Yeah.
Oh, he is.
Yeah, he's
Madigan.
Oh my god. He's the love interest of True Jackson.
Yeah. Well, the point is that he's terrible, and so this is a movie where like it's like supposed to be like a gritty superhero movie where so stupid. It's so boring. I don't even know why I'm laughing. So basically, Robbie Amell has superpowers because like in the beginning, there's like some like they do that thing where they have I think 28 Days Later started where like the opening title has like a bunch of like news
Yep.
footage that gives you the exposition of what's going on in the world. So like in this universe, like bombs went off or something, so people have like superpowers, but like they only have like certain specific superpowers. Like some people can like have force powers, and then some people have like electric powers, and then they're all used to work on construction sites.
Oh my god.
So Robbie Amell is like a construction worker who does like electrician stuff because he's an electric guy, and
Okay.
he needs it to make money because his mom he lives with his mom and she has like some
Loser.
skin disease, like superpower skin disease that's like slowly killing her and needs the money. And then he's working there and he's working with a bunch of superheroes that are like they have planks of wood and they use like force powers to like levitate upwards so they catch it.
Okay.
And it's like and then so then like these drones come. I'm just gonna talk about this movie because it's really stupid.
I'm really curious. The drones come, do they shoot
So
the
these
people?
drones come and they're like police drones, and they're like, and then the police cars come and they're like, oh, there are any unregistered powers here.
Oh,
So that they call
God.
powers or something.
Something
And
very original.
yeah, and then the drones come and they're like analyzing each of the people. Then one guy's unregistered and he tries to escape, and then the drones like birth these robot policemen, like happy policemen that come out and they shoot the guy and they kill him. And Robbie Amell's like, why do that? And Robbie Amell's trying to be intimidating in this movie, and this does not work. He's not intimidating
He's
at all.
not intimidating guy.
And
Okay.
then, so he gets mad, and then Stephen Amell, who plays like a bank robber guy, he's like, hey kid, he got some good skills, and because they need an electrician guy to help them out for some reason. Because there's like an electric fence that you need to get over.
Robbie Amell's only purpose in the movie is to disable an electric fence,
Yeah.
which could have been done by turning off the power, which anyone can do by flipping a switch.
Or like putting a blanket over it or something, and like
Does
a
anyone
wool
do you think Robbie Amell are they brothers?
They're cousins in real
Oh,
life.
I like to think it's like he's like the special needs. Like if
Yeah.
they're like, we're gonna have you. Sorry. He's the
I do
little
not condone that.
Sorry, he's the little brother character.
He's the bonus Jonas of the Amell family.
He's the Frankie Jonas.
Yeah. Why do you know his name?
Because I looked it up. There's 4 Jonas Brothers. Jonas Brothers have formed twice, and Frankie Jonas has been kicked out or not been part of it twice.
I like people like going on the Jonas Brothers really quickly. Like their persona's like, oh, we're just like 3 brothers and we're really close, and we like make music together and stuff. And then it's
we're happy. We're the
then Frank Jones comes out like get back, yeah, no one wants to see you, now go. And then when they go back to their photo shoot, they're like, yeah, their hands all over. It's like, yeah, we're just brothers.
We're just us 3. There's I looked at Frankie Jonas's Instagram. And he's like, "Happy birthday, Kevin! Happy birthday, Joe!" And then I looked at like Kevin and Joe's, and there's nothing but like, "Happy birthday, Frankie!"
Oh my god, that's
I like to think they spell his name wrong. Happy birthday, Franny. They're like, whatever.
You know, it's bad when Kevin Jonas fits more into the group than Frank Jonas. Kevin Jonas is also like a reject too. Like no one cares about him.
And then when they formed the Jonas Brothers again, they told Kevin, they're like, "You can't sing like you did last time." I don't know if they did, but he does not sing anymore.
No, good.
He just kind of stands in the background, dances a little bit.
People recognize me.
Yeah, I'm Kevin.
We need to keep up the illusion that we're one perfect happy family.
Do you know Kevin Jonas had a reality TV show?
Yes, I didn't know that,
Yeah.
but no one cared about it because it's Kevin Jonas.
Why did they go, hey, they went to the Jonas Brothers, like, we want you guys to be in a reality TV show. Not the 2 famous ones or the talented ones. We want you, Kevin. And that's that.
Well, they couldn't get the other ones, probably.
That's a good point. And Kevin's like, I'll do it. Like, fuck.
Kevin's agent called, and he was like sitting down eating a sandwich. He's like, "What?" And he jumped up and threw his table over.
He's like, "I'm going to be famous.
I have a job."
Oh my god. Do you think he called them and started gloating, and they were just like swimming in money? They're like,
Yeah.
Kevin.
Yeah, with their super successful wives and everything. Because what's the youngest one's name? Who's the one's who's married
Frankie?
to the Indian lady?
Is it
Nick
Frankie?
Jonas. Yeah, he's married
Nick.
to the really successful Indian actress, and then Joe is married to Sophie Turner.
Is he?
Yeah.
Oh, good for him. Isn't he like 5'4"?
I don't know. He's probably pretty. I think I've seen pictures, and Sophie Turner's like way taller than he is.
It's like,
He's
yeah.
like on his toes.
Hey!
he's like Frank, make yourself useful and hoist me up.
Do you think at home he asked Sophie Turner? He's like, I need to get down the top shelf. Can you pick me up? Hey, we're short too. We can make these jokes because we're also
pretty
short.
too.
So do you think he's just like, he picked me up? She's like, oh, okay.
But we're not in the Jonas Brother family, so it's more funny.
Yeah, we can make fun of short people because we're
Back
short.
to Source 8 or whatever this movie that I watched.
What is it called? Source 8?
No, what's it called?
Code 8, I think.
Code 8. Yeah, that's right.
Have you looked this up 3 times? Oh wait, why did you watch this movie?
Because I thought it was gonna be bad. Because I know that Stephen Amell is trying to turn Robbie Amell into a famous actor, but he's just terrible. And so they try to rob a bank, and then Robbie Amell uses his electric powers to destroy the electric fence, and Stephen Amell goes, "Oh, he's a level 10 electrician," and that doesn't make any sense at all.
Okay.
And then they meet love interest, who works for the crime boss. She's a healer, and the crime boss has some disease, and he has to keep healing her. Keep healing him for random reasons, and then the actress is probably stoned out of her mind the whole time, and like literally she's stoned out of her mind the whole time. It's just a really generic movie, and it's really boring, and it's not even like interesting in like a bad kind of way. It's just really generic, and the practical effects are bad, and I don't recommend it. But it was just funny to see Stephen Amell's like 5th attempt at trying to make his cousin into an actor.
Isn't Robbie Amell is apparently in a show called Upload, something like that, on Amazon Prime. And I looked up reviews on it, and one of those scathing reviews I saw was like, this show isn't good, it isn't bad, it isn't creative, it's just nothing. Yeah. I was like, great. Right, Robbie Amell, I just remember him from True Jackson VP, and I think The Duff. I think I remember hearing about that. It's like the designated ugly fat friend.
Yeah.
And he's like the QB star, because I remember I saw a TikTok when people make fun of the way he throws, because he throws.
He's like 32 now, so he's probably like.
He's 32
now.
Oh my god!
His late 20s when he was playing a high school quarterback or something crap like that.
We should reach out to Robbie Amell. Be like, you want to be on our podcast? We can talk about Code 8.
How much are you gonna pay me? $20? I'll do 15.
It's like, oh. Do you think Stephen Amell calls him? He's like, I got a role for you. He's like, no, okay. I like to think that they're gonna cast him as the Arrow. That Robbie Amell.
I think Stephen Amell tried to get him cast because spoiler for Arrow season 8, and then no one watched. Stephen Amell dies and becomes a god at the end of it.
What?
And it's so stupid. It's such a lame ending.
He dies and becomes
wanted Stephen Robbie to be like the next Arrow in the spinoff show. It's like, how about my cousin Robbie? They're like, no, it's terrible.
They're like, okay. He's like, all right, I tried.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. I watched Silence of the Lambs. Because I've been watching Hannibal.
You've seen it before, right?
I've seen it before, and I just have one comment to say. As much as I love Mads Mikkelsen and Hannibal, I'm interested. I want to talk about Hannibal, like the half of second season, because I'm like 8 episodes in, and I have like minor complaints about the show, surprisingly. But there is a certain Mads Mikkelsen is amazing. Not saying he's not, but there's a certain level of like gravitas that Anthony Hopkins has that crushes anything Mads Mikkelsen does. As great as Mads Mikkelsen is. There is just like Anthony Hopkins commands everything he does in that movie.
Yeah.
And I was very impressed. That's all. I mean, everything about Silence of the Lambs has been said. It's one of the most famous movies of all time. I just rewatched it. It's amazing. I have some questions about Hannibal. Slight spoilers for Hannibal. I'm like halfway through season 2. And they're going back to like the villain of the week again. And I don't really like it.
Yeah. I don't really remember. Like I watched a couple years ago, but they kind of have to. It's episodic stuff. What was the villain of the week that they did?
They recently one of the last few episodes was they got the guy who put the people in the horse. And there's like 1 or 2 more, but I know what they're doing. It's because they're building the relationship between Hannibal and Will Graham, but they're doing it under the guise of villain of the week.
Yeah,
and I don't find it as interesting. The first 4 episodes of season 2 are phenomenal, and then on the next 4 kind of meandering a little bit. But they're building a relationship. I get it. It's not as engaging. I was like, because the high of the first 4 episodes of season 2 are the best 4 episodes of the show right now. And then we're like on 4 lower episodes. I'm like, whatever. Are you reading anything good?
I'm rereading Uncanny X-Force comic books.
Oh my god.
This is actually like one of my favorite comic book series.
He has it right now. He's showing the camera.
Yeah, because written by Rick Remender, who's a really good comic book artist. But this is like my ideal X-Force movie if it was ever made. Like it's like a seven volume series, and
Okay.
it actually does Deadpool good. It does that like Ryan Reynolds can never do Deadpool as good as Rick Remender does it. And so I mean, he doesn't even swear or anything in the comic. Like he's actually funny and flippant. Like
He's
not
funny.
in Deadpool movies where he's like I just got shot in the butthole, and then he goes,
I left my oven on.
on.
That reference. Look, baby penis.
Yeah,
I don't like the Deadpool movies that much.
no, they're not good. They're very overrated.
Yeah.
That's gotta be the tragedy of the 2000s. Everyone liking the Deadpool movies.
It's like, all right, we should maybe talk about the Deadpool movies sometime and how they're not really that funny, or they don't hold up on rewatch.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
But yeah,
X-Force.
no, it's a fun series. It's very gritty in a way, and there's a lot of creativity in it. Like they fight like the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse and stuff.
Okay. Interesting.
And then in the first volume, they're trying to kill Apocalypse, like the actual X-Men villain, and they find out that he's just like a little kid, like the next reincarnation of him. This is a little kid right now.
Yeah.
And so they had this debate on whether or not they should kill him. And then one of the X-Force members, his name is Phantom Max, he just shoots the kid in the head.
Nice.
And then because I've already read the series, and like that repercussion that has consequences later on as well. Like the guy feels like horrible about having to kill the kid and everything because the kid's innocent at this moment. And I don't know. I think like there's a lot of really bad comic books, but I think that this one's actually pretty well written. Like you read Saga, so you know there's good comic books out there. But like I think that they can't Wolverine's in it, Psylocke's in it, Archangel's in it, and like I just think the characters are really well realized. And Rick Remender is one of my favorite comic book writers out there.
Yeah.
And I'm also reading an intelligent book. I mean, I actually think Uncanny X-Force is really good and really well written.
I'm reading a book.
I'm reading The Beautiful and the Damned by F. Scott Fitzgerald.
Oh my god!
So far,
damn! Look at you go. I'm reading The Expanse book 4.
Yeah.
Book 3 and book 4 are good. The book 1 and book 2 are phenomenal. But book 3 and book 4, I know book 5 changes a little bit, but book 3 and book 4 of this series are more bottle episodes, I feel like.
Yeah.
Which I thought a lot of the charm of books 1 and 2 in the series were exploring the world. But the thing is, you can only go so. I think the author does actually something really intelligent with this, is because books 1 and 2 are escalating to a point where it's very high, and then book 3 and book 4 are the come down. But by doing like that, come down to the like resting for probably another big escalation towards, they're sacrificing a lot of the charm of the world.
Yeah.
To kind of like temper expectations. Like we cannot keep going higher than this. Like it's good. But they also kind of stray away a little bit from like the interesting characters. I think book 3 doesn't have a lot of engaging characters. Book 4 is better. But there's like this weird, slight spoilers for what I'm at in book 4. But there's this character, Elvie, which have you seen Expanse season 4?
Yeah.
Because that's what Cibola Byrne takes place on, Eyeless. So is the character Elvie in season 4?
I think so.
Where basically her entire chapters are really just kind of served to fawn over Holden, where she just basically like, where she's just like, he's kind of like she's like, she even describes herself. She's like, I feel like a schoolgirl in this, but it really, it's like, just because the author points it out and still does it doesn't make it okay. Yeah. But it's just like, wow, he's so cool. And it's like, we already know he's kind of cool. Like this book really serves Holden. What?
Wait, what's his name?
James Holden? Jim Holden?
I said Holden.
Yeah, you said who's Holden?
I said he's Holden.
Oh, shut up. Yeah, so I don't know. Like this book serves, like there's a lot of stuff like Naomi where he's like, Holden's like the best. He'll get me out of this. It's like, okay. Like I get it. We've had 2-3 books to prove how cool he is. So that's basically it. I don't know. That's why I've been doing Hannibal, and we watched The Wrestler. Great discussion, by the way.
Yeah, no. Another excellent podcast.
I know, we're amazing.
So review for us.
Yeah, another top 10, another top review for us. But so next week, either one of two things are going to happen. I can give you my recommendation, but we also might have the redheaded stepchild of our friend group, Mark, come in and recommend a movie of his own. For my recommendation, just in case, so either one of two is next week going to happen. We don't know yet. My recommendation is the 2006 John Cena action movie, The Marine. I really wanted to watch this for something stupid because the last 3 weeks have been heavier. And this movie I remember being fun and stupid, and I figured we could have some fun with it. But if Mark decides to grace us with his everlasting presence,
With his giant head.
with his giant head
wisdom.
of wisdom and knowledge, he asked us if we could talk about the portrait of a artist
Lady on
of
Fire.
a lady on fire. I forgot the name of the movie. So next week we're either talking about the Marine or the portrait of a lady on fire. So that's episode 6.
Yeah.
Episode 7, just a preview, will be, I know we're professionals, we plan in advance. We're talking about either the Five Bloods by the new Spike Lee movie or the new Judd Apatow movie, King of Staten Island, or both. Well,
Who knows?
who knows? Probably one because we're lazy.
Or maybe both because we want to get that money.
I know. Hey, get that podcast money.
Yeah.
You see, Joe Rogan sold his podcast for $100 million.
He sold it?
Well, he the exclusive rights to stream it. So Spotify went, we'll give you $100 million to only put your podcast on Spotify.
Oh, so there won't be any more highlights on YouTube?
No, he still gets all the YouTube stuff,
Oh,
YouTube
okay.
highlights, which is absurd. We gotta
That's
we
crazy.
gotta make the money.
We gotta get that. I would take 1/100th of that money.
I would take even less than that. I would take like $100.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, thanks. Yeah, so that's our plan for the next 2 weeks. If Mark doesn't show, we'll do the Marine. Then we'll do King of Staten Island, the Five Bloods, and then Mark after. Mark's is gonna be portrait, so
We'll figure it out.
we'll figure it out because we're professionals. But
Yes.
any final
Also
comments, Matt?
subscribe if you watch this because we only have 4 subscribers.
Yeah. Oh, we want to get on Social Blade so we can show our families, hey, this is real. This is a real
This is
thing.
a waste of time, Mom.
How dare you? Yeah. So, any final comments?
No,
No?
I'm really hungry. That's all I'm
Yeah.
gonna say.
Well, yeah. That so am I.
I'm excited to watch new movies. I'm excited to do the Five Bloods and
I know.
King of Staten Island. 'cause
I'm really yeah. I'm excited to talk about the Marine.
we should just watch that movie as soon as it comes out and then make the podcast immediately to get some of that money
Which one?
for like the newer movies.
Oh, the new ones. Yeah. Immediately, just go. Hey, let's get that
It
money.
would be Chris Stuckman.
Dude, who are the Schmoes Notes still doing anything? Do they still have a channel?
No, I think they both left the channel.
Are
I think they
people
do I think these random people now do like the Schmodown stuff.
Oh my god! I'm gonna look at it after. I missed them. I'm gonna go watch
I
one of
don't
their
miss
old
them at all.
reviews. I missed their ratings. So yeah, this was episode 4, 5,
4.
4.
4.
No, 5.
No, we did 4 because of 4. Yeah, this is
No, it's 5.
no,
Episode 4 was Walk Among the Tombstones.
that was episode 3.
No, episode 1 was
Episode 1 was no movie. Episode
Yeah.
2 was Handmaiden.
no. Episode
3
2
Walk
was
Among the
episode 2 was no movie. Our first 2 were no movies.
No, only the first one was no movies.
No, our first 2 were no movies. I will make a bet with you. No, don't check. I'll make a bet with you. If I'm right, what do I get?
You get my appreciation.
I don't like your appreciation. I want money. I need money. That's why you guys should subscribe and like and comment. And tell all your friends and families and
Oh, guys, we gotta go.
We
Yeah,
gotta
that's
get-
episode 5.
Yes. All right, guys. Thank you guys for watching, listening, doing whatever. Yeah. Give us money. And, and
Bye.
goodbye.